Introduction to Power BI. Power BI is divided into three parts. So we have the Power BI desktop, that's that. We have the Power BI service, and then we have the Power BI report builder. Now I'm starting from here because if you look at our outline, we're looking at an introduction to Power BI. Now you can't understand Power BI without understanding that there are these three aspects of Power BI. And there is a difference between the two. The third one is called a Power BI report builder. We're not going to talk about that in this class. However, the Power BI desktop is what we use to design our reports. And when we are done designing our reports, we share our reports with every other person using the Power BI service. And we're going to see that here. So like I said, the Power BI desktop is like your Microsoft Excel on your system. Now, that Power BI desktop is like your Microsoft Excel or your Microsoft Word on your computer. You will agree with me that if, for instance, you are on the move and you need to do something quickly, you have Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel in the cloud. That is similar to your Power BI service. When we finish designing in Power BI desktop, we will publish it, and then anybody that wants to see our Power BI reports will use a Power BI service to just open the link and they can see our dashboard. The third thing there, which is a Power BI report builder, that is used to build the reports, but just a list. As we go along, I will show the differences and how they actually interplay, I promised that what I'm going to do on this, I promised in the intro to this that what I was going to do was show you quick and easy way to begin to use Power BI. And I have used Power BI for almost a decade now, and I know that there are some faster ways to get things done. One of them is understanding your reports. So if I want to build a report in Power BI, so take for instance, the first thing you should consider is number one, let me leave that there. Well, I'll just say the first thing to consider is one, your design. The second thing to consider is your data. The third thing to consider is relationships. The fourth thing to consider is your reports. And the fifth thing to consider is your publishing. So these 5 areas are things to look at when designing any report in Power BI. Your design, the data, relationships, reports, publishing. Those are the 5 areas that we are going to cover. And at the end of it, you will be designing beautiful dashboards. Now, to look at your data, we would have to now begin to open Power BI desktop. I showed you what the icon looks like. Now, I'll crave your indulgence. If you already have Power BI installed, please bring it up and you should have a screen that looks like this. Use Microsoft Excel before. At any point, please put an E in the chat, E for Excel. Now, the first thing is we want to pull our data into our system. This is a giveaway. It's called Get Data. Now, I'm going to click on Get Data. And I could immediately click on Excel workbook so that I bring in that Excel sheet. But what I will do is I'll go to More. And I'm going to More so that you see a list of all the other data sets, all the other data sources that are available. So you've got Excel, you've got text, CSV, you've got XML, you've got JSON, you've got folder. Folder is one data source I see a lot of organizations use. And that's because you might be an organization that you have a branch in Lagos, a branch in Port Harcourt, a branch in London, a branch in Birmingham, and you have managers in all those different branches, and they all work with different spreadsheets. You can take all those spreadsheets and drop it into one folder. And every month they can drop in their sales reports, drop it in that folder, and you have a Power BI that just queries that. So we said these are various data sources. You've got SQL Server, you've got SharePoint. You can even extract from PDF. When we come out of here, I'll show you that you can also extract from a website. So for instance, you have gone to a Wikipedia page, and that Wikipedia page, you are doing a research, and that research, you are trying to see prevalence of mosquitoes in West Saharan region. And you can see a Wikipedia page that talks about everything you want, and you're like, whoa, that's the data I need. You can actually pull data from a website link, and I will show you shortly. So these are all data sources. These are all data sources. Lots of them. Look at Lakehouse, KQL databases, Matrix, SQL databases, and so on and so on. So many of them. I mentioned you can pull from the web. So that's a web. If you click on that, you just add a website link and it just pulls data. Any table it sees there, it pulls it for you. For today's class, we are going to be pulling data from an Excel workbook. So if you click on Excel, if we do this together, click on Excel and say connect. It will do some work and give you your data. I've told Power BI bring in this spreadsheet. The next thing I want to do, Power BI is telling me I can see I can see 4 tabs in your spreadsheet. What do you want? We want everything. So because we want everything, I'm going to just select them. I'll just click the checkbox. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've selected everything. When you select, one thing you will notice is that this becomes highlighted. You have load, you have transform data. Now, we've got this happening for us. And you see load data, you see transform data. The very first question you ask is, what is the difference between load data and transform data? If I click on load data, what I'm telling Power BI is, don't do anything about this data. I like it the way it is. If I click on transform data, what I'm telling Power BI is, there are a few things I need to do on this data. Looking at this data, there are a couple of things I can say we need to do. For instance, what is null? What is null? I don't need null because null will introduce errors. So I don't need it. Take, for instance, what is, if I look for something else that I might need some work on, let me see. Total sales. Total sales should be a currency, and I'm having it as 300,000. What is that? What does that really mean? And I've got all this null. That is a problem. So rather than say load, let's all click on transform data. Now, when you click on transform data, Power BI says, okay, so you are smart. You want to do some work on this data. Now, when you're in the Power Query Editor, the very first thing you will observe is that it has an interface that looks like a lot is happening. And if you're like me, that you want to see things properly, one of the first things is, why do I have sheet 2, sheet 1, 3, and 4? It doesn't make sense. Why don't I have 1, 2, 3, 4? That makes more sense to me, yes? So if I want to move the sheets around, just click, drag. Now, the reason I showed that is we need to begin to see what this Power Query Editor can do. And let me tell you a secret. This Power Query Editor is also in Microsoft Excel. That means if you understand what we are doing here in Power Query Editor, you can take that same information into Microsoft Excel and do wonders. Now, let me also state this now. Remember, we said that this design, data. Listen to this. There are 5 parts, yeah? Of these 5 parts, Now, you would expect to spend about 50% of your time in data, data, data. Design, you spend like maybe 15% of your time, because here you want to get requirements. So you're going to be talking to stakeholders, you're going to be getting an idea of what they want, all of that. Spend about 15% of your time there. Relationships, probably you just look at maybe like 5%. That's just because I don't want to write 1%. You don't spend too much time there. So the next place you're going to spend some time, the next place you're going to spend some good quality time is here in building your reports. Probably spend about 25% of your time there. Probably spend about 25% of your time there. So publishing, just about 5% of your time. So if you look at that, data is where we'll spend a lot of our time. We'll spend a lot of our time in data. So don't feel in a hurry when you are working with your data, and I'll explain why. Now, because when you're working with your data, let me just go back here. If your data has errors in them, you have a problem with your reports. If your data doesn't look good, doesn't feel right, there are inconsistencies, there will be problem with your reports, and you'll be going back and forth and back and forth. So what are the few things we can do here? The first one is, I don't like to see these nulls. They are not working with my, a lot of people just say, it's not working with my mental health. But yes, it's not very sightly. And of course, null will affect your results. So one of the first things we'll do is we'll take out nulls. I'll give an example. So look at that. You see there are nulls at the bottom here. Come into this drop down here, and we can just say remove all the nulls. If I just uncheck that button and say okay, bam. We have taken away the nulls, but you observe something very interesting. I still have nulls on the side. Now, the reason why you still have nulls on the side is what we removed was the nulls that were under equipment. If I want to take out all these other nulls, I have to select this and scroll to the end, press the shift button and select the last one. And I can just delete, right click and just say remove columns. When we look at our Power Query editor, one of the first things that I pointed out, especially when we're giving names here, was the fact that you wanted to be able to see how do these different sheets relate. So look at this. We said there's equipment name here and there's equipment supplier here. So yes, okay, that's fine. Then we have another one here. There's equipment ID, equipment category, equipment name, total sales, total region. Looking at this table, if someone comes to me and says, which supplier has made the highest total sales, I can't answer that question with just this information. I need to join this information with this information so that I can see which equipments are here, which suppliers supply those equipments. Then I will link the equipment name to the sales. So I can see here that laptops is doing about, smartphone is doing 360,000 pounds. But which supplier supplies me smartphones? I know it's electronics. And if I go back here, I can see suppliers. Which supplier does electronics? Electronics. I don't even know which supplier does electronics here. But I know which supplier does, what's it called? Smartphones. Yes, smartphones. If I come here, I can look for smartphones. And I can see that Anderson Cooper. But you see, I can't answer that question without finding the relationship between these two data sets. So to answer the question about which supplier has made the highest total sales, I know the highest total sales is for smartphone, which is 360,000 pounds. But to know the supplier, I need to link this this query with this query. So I'll come here and I'll say, where you have smartphone, link it up with this other guy. So that when I look for smartphone here, I know Anderson Cooper is the answer to the question. But in our design, how do we actually do relationships? So if I click on model view, bam, Power BI is smart enough to begin to see that there's a relationship between all these data. And you see all these lines that are joining here, all these lines that are joining here is where Power BI is seeing a relationship. And it has joined all of them in such a neat way. It has said the customer purchase can be linked to the sales, cost, equipment and sales details by the ID because they both have an equipment ID. So that if I have to answer a question in equipment and sales from customer purchases, I can use the relationship of equipment ID to join both of them. Power BI has also shown that between equipment and sales details and equipment and suppliers, there's a relationship called equipment name. That relationship, Power BI automatically saw the relationship. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we're spending just 5% of our time on relationship. And now that we get relationship, let's spend about 25% of our time building the reports. The first thing you observe in report view is that, yes, you've got all these things. They're called visuals. These are all your visuals. And to make use of your visuals, just click on any one. So for instance, I click on the pie chart. So now that I click on the pie chart, I've got my pie chart there. You can. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to put a visual. If you have used visuals in Microsoft Excel, it is similar. The first visual I want to see the regions. I want to see the regions where I've had sales, the regions and their total sales. Look here, I've got regions, I've got total sales. I can do that using this chart. So I'll just take regions, click, and drop it there. And I'll take, don't worry, something is happening. I'll take total sales, click, and I'll drop the value. And I will take region again, and I'll drop it in, okay, sorry, details. So I've got all these regions. But look at that. Under value, it's telling me the count of total sales. I don't want that. I'll just right click and I'll say don't, and I'll say give me the sum. When it was on count, it was counting how many regions, so North region, West region, South region, East region. Now I'm looking at total sales by region, and I have this value there. Looking at this pie chart, I'm looking at the pie chart and I'm telling myself, oh, what's happening here? What is the meaning of 456.72K? I'm talking about money you're giving me in fractions. Before that, I know pounds is higher than dollars, so I'd rather work with pounds than dollars. Let's make some money here. Click on total sales. When you click on total sales, the menu bar up there gives you an opportunity to select what the currency would look like. So right now it's on dollars, but if I click this drop down, and this is similar to what you see in Excel or Word or any other, especially Excel, this is similar to what you see in Excel. I can scroll down and just say English pounds. Bam. It's there. It's giving me the number that I want. The next thing I want to do is I want to see the number in full. I'll go into format your visual, click on that. And then this is my details. So if I click on that, it's now telling me my details, they are going to be shown on the outside. I'm okay with that. But I don't want to see the percentage. Or should we keep the percentage? Let's keep the percentage so that we see that 47.42% of our sales is happening in the north. So let's keep it that way. But I want my value to be in full. And so my value is in full. I have to change this from auto to none. from auto to none. Now I changed from auto to none, and this guy just vexed. I was like, nah, I'm not going to show you everything. I don't feel like. So let's change our label content to just data value. So just change your label content to just data value. And then change your display unit to none. And then because we are looking at currency, you see it has already put a comma there. And that's because when we were doing our settings, remember when we did our settings earlier in Power Query, we specified that this is currency. And so it knows that information. One last thing I will say here is, now I'm presenting this to my managers. I don't want them saying sum of total sales by region and regional. Doesn't make sense. So I'll just say sales by region. I could just call this sales by region. And to change the title of this visual, I just have to go to format your visual like before, go to general. It's a title. So I click on title and I can just say sales by region. Click enter. And if I do sales by region, I can decide, I want it to be centralized. I want to change the color of the font to something a little more funky, like let's choose this color. That color looks good. I can increase the size by either clicking on this to increase, or I can type in the number just the same way you would do with any spreadsheet application or Microsoft Word. Those settings are similar. Yeah. Now I've got that working for me. I've got this sales by region. I've got this. The next is I want to bring a visual. I want to see equipment, the category, and the total sales. Please take note, when you use a pie chart when you don't have too much information to display. But right now, I want to display equipment name and the total sales. So sales by equipment category. Sales by equipment category. Now, what I'll do is I'll click on this and I'll show this so that you just know in future. If you have a visual and, for instance, this pie chart, and you mistakenly click any other visual, look at what happens. Bam. It changes your visual. It forgets that you are doing something. It just changes it. So whenever you want to add another visual to your page, make sure you've clicked out before you click your visual. In this case, I want to change this to this stacked bar charts. This is what it looks like. That's the first one here. And we want to bring in the equipment name. And we want to bring in the total sales. We'll put the total sales in our x-axis. And just like before, we'll put our equipment name in our legend. So this is looking not correct. And the reason why this is looking not correct is because if you look at our x-axis, it is counting the total sales. Whereas what we want to do is we want it to sum the total sales. So if I right click, I can just say do a sum. If I wanted to do an average, I'll do an average. If I wanted to do a standard deviation variance, there are all those options to choose from, but we want to do a sum. So straight away, looking at this visual, I can say, oh, smartphone is doing the most sales. So basically, I can say to myself, my God, I can't lose my smartphone market. And just like we did with our pie chart, I can edit the label, make the labels come down, change the heading, and I can do that by going into visuals, just like before. The legend, it will make a lot of sense if I see the exact amount. So I'm not just using this line to estimate what the value is. So I'll come to my legend, data label. I'll go to data label and just open this box here. Just say on. When you say on, see, it brings in the figures. Just like the figures we had in our pie chart. And then just like before, if I go into data label, just like before, I'll just change the title and move my legends to the bottom so it looks better. So by clicking on that visual, I can go into this. On that title, I could change the color to any other color. Maybe I'll just use a color like that. It's too close to the first color there. So I'll use something like this. It's not bad. One of the things you will notice is in Microsoft Excel, you have worksheets like this. So this is called page 1. If I wanted to put another worksheet, just press this plus sign and I have page 2. If I want to rename this so I can call this my summary, just double click on it and then to allow you to rename. Now let's show quickly how those relationships that we talked about. Remember we said design, data, relationships. Now we're in reporting. Now we're going to see how those relationships work together. Now the next visual we're going to put on our details tab is called our table view. So it's on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, row 5, column 4. Row 5, column 4 is called table. So if I click on table, it comes to my screen. And just like before, I can just drag it around and drop it anywhere I want. I can extend it just by coming here, extend it to where I want. I can extend it to any length I want. It doesn't matter for now. So I've got that there. I've got my table view. Now I want to bring in data. I want to look at what kind of data that I want to like pull together. So imagine somebody comes here and says, oh, I've seen that the North region, you've done this amount. Let me see all the information you have about the North region. They should be able to see it here in details. So now let's start. If you've got your table, just either unmute and say done or just put done in the chat. If you got your table, done, beautiful, beautiful. Because the next things we are going to do, done, awesome. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to move a little quickly. Now, let us bring in, because now all of these are linked. Let's see where we have the most data. Good. Now that we have all of this information, I just open it up so we see what's inside each of them. Now I'm going to pull in my product category. Let's start with our equipment ID, because usually I want to believe that there should be like something unifying all of them. Equipment ID, bring it, drop it here. Whoa, so it's telling me these are all my equipments, 1 to 10. Now I'll take my equipment category and look at where I'm dropping it. I'm dropping it under equipment ID here, under columns, just so that I can arrange it where I want to be, where I want it to be. That's brought it in. So that those are all my equipments, all the categories, just 10 lines. Now I'm going to bring in equipment name, drop it there, and you'll notice something. Still there. Equipment name, all of that is there. The next thing I want to bring, I want to say, okay, what is the total sales by each of these equipments? Total sales, I'll drag it, I'll drop it here. Now I'm doing total sales. So it's doing sum of all the sales that's brought it here. There's no problem there. So far, everything I've been bringing has been from one area. So we have that. If you notice, I brought everything just from one place. The next thing I want to do is I want to say, okay, now I have all this information. When did we sell all these products? When did we sell it? So that we know, as an analyst, I want to know what is our peak period for sales and what is our not so peak period for sales. I can bring the sales date, but sales date is under customer purchases. Now let's bring sales date and see what happens. If I bring sales dates and I bring it here, total sales, then put sales date after total sales. Bam. Now my page has gone from 10 lines to so many different lines. And that's because if you notice, Our customer purchase had lots of information with lots of dates and all of that. So it has seen that relationship and it has brought it in here. As we go along, you'll see. One quick thing I will say, if you notice our sales dates, we brought in sales dates, but it's broken down into year, quarter, all of that. We don't need all of that. So right click on it and just say, just give me the dates. And when you give me the dates, I don't want the dates like all of this gibberish that you put here. So if I click on sales dates, I can go to the menu bar on top and just specify under the format. I can just specify day, month, and year, just like this, day, month, and year. Immediately I specify that, it gives me just day, month, and year of the sales. So I have all of that. Now, when I look at this total sales data is no longer working for me. And it's no longer working for me because now I have the sum of sales in that region. That's the total sales. So you see it's just repeating. 300,000 for laptop, 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 laptop. This chair, all of that. So except if there is another information that shows me unit sales. Yes. You see, when we started and we said that you need to spend a lot of time in your data cleaning, this is one of those reasons. Because now I know the total sales in that region, but I don't know how much each customer bought. So if I go to Power Query, now I have online department, sales dates, customer ID, equipment ID, customer location country. I have customer ID, I have what they bought, but I don't know the unit price. I don't have the unit price. But can I find the unit price? The answer is yes. And the reason is because on this other tab, I have quantity sold. So of course, my unit price will be the total sales minus quantity sold. We can actually find our unit price for each of those items. So if someone has bought a laptop, I can find the unit price. But that's not going to be in the scope of our discussion now. I could actually create a new column that says total sales divided by quantity sold and give me the unit price. Now, this particular tab, we have brought it into this particular table, we have brought it into this tab called details, because we expect that when someone comes to the summary and they see sales by region is the north, who are these people in the north? What did they even do and all of that? They will come to the details. And that's why we have created a details tab. So it houses all our amalgamated, when I say amalgamated, all our joins. If you are someone that is familiar with SQL, it's like I've joined these 4 tabs. Look at them. I've taken something from here. I've taken something from here. I've taken from here. And I've taken from here because there was a relationship. So I've got my table here. Now, remember I said that I want a show whereby if someone comes to summary and says sales by region, I want this to take them to details. To do this, we use a feature called drill through. Drill through. And to do drill through, you can see it here. We're in details now. You can see add drill through field here. I want to drill by region. I'll say come here and drop it here. Bam. It's there. Now, I will do it before and after. Now, when I right click on this, it's going to show drill through. For now, when I right click on this, it's not showing me any drill through. There's no drill through here. But if I come back to details and drag customer name and drop it in drill through here like this, bam. When I go back to my summary, right click on drill through, and you can see details. In there, select something, drill through, and what you are just saying is, I want to see this value. So if I right click now and say drill through and go to details, it will show me only smartphones and show me only the total sales. If I come back to summary and say laptop, right click, click on drill through and go to details. Now it's showing me only laptops. Only laptops. Now, for instance, in the notes, now you come to the notes and somebody says, oh, I want to see what's really happening in the notes. So if I right click, I can do a drill through and go to details. And straight away I can see, oh, so this was happening in the notes. And see all the different people that are really supporting the note. John, Harry, Samuel, Gabby, David, Annie, all of that. So this is just information about the note. I wanted to see the suppliers that have done the most sales. Let's bring that in as well. Suppliers that have done the most sales. If I bring that in as a visual, just like before, but this time we'll use a donut chart. I'll click on donut chart. I'll bring it here, just to the side. And then the same way we did our first two graphics, looking at suppliers from the angle of how much they are contributing to my bottom line by region. I want to just put this in percentage because I want to do a ratio of sales by supplier. So I'll go to my format. It's under detail label. Yes, I want it to be outside, but I want to just have percentage of total. So it's showing me that there is a supplier that is giving me 73.42% of sales. Now, this last visual that I'm just going to suggest we put on this page is called the slicer. Now, if you click on that, make sure you are not selecting any other visual on your page. Click on slicer, and this comes up like that. So when you do that, what I want to do with the slicer is I want to begin to see dates. Possibly, is there a time when North region does better than South region or East region or all of that? Just take region and drop it there. And because it's a text, it will give you a different format. If you have this there, the next thing, just like we did with every other thing, you can just take this and go to format and change our slicer settings. Rather than vertical list, we can just use a drop down. And under selection, just select all. South, these are the sales by south. This is the west. So that's what's happening. If I select all, we're back there. You've got your slicer, you've got your pie chart, you've got your bar chart, you've got your donut chart, you've got your details table. Now, of course, we can go all out and then just begin to tweak it a bit. If you are someone that you are good with graphics, this is your opportunity to do something called finishing. So if I go back to this tab, I gave an outline. And I said, when you're doing your designs, you look at stakeholder requirements, you look at your designs, you look at your fonts, color interaction. And we're at the stage of our reporting where we'll do our finishing. Finishing would involve making sure your font is right, make sure all of that is right. And let me just quickly show you one hack to do your finishing. Go to View. And in View, there are some themes that you can just borrow ideas from. So if I pick this one, for instance, boom, it gives me that, but I'm not such a fan because the white around this is not working for me. I can pick something that doesn't let my white show, or I can pick something else that gives me these colors, or pick something else like this, or pick something else like this, depending on the color of the organization you're working with. On this, and I think I like this one, and I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to keep it there. But if you don't see any of the designs that you want to pick from, and you definitely want to pick something from here, you can browse for themes. You can customize this current theme. So when you finish customizing it, you save the theme. So if you are someone that you work a lot with Power BI, when you are finished designing, just say save theme. Wow. And it will save everything you've done so that when you pick it up again, it will show. Now, one last thing, I'll just get in the text box. Now, this text box, I can just type something in. So for instance, I could just type, I can just say Zabro Synergy. And this entire interface is similar to what you've had in Microsoft Word, in Excel, in any other. I could just increase the size to whatever. I could make it bold. I could make it italics. I could change the color and just as much as possible, make sure it stays consistent on the page. I've got some green here. That's why I use that green. And then I could just move this around just by click. I could just pick on that, click and drag it somewhere else. And then I could add like let me just remove italics. Italics is not working for me there. The font is also not working for me. I can change the font. Yeah, I'll leave this there. This looks like authority. And I could add subtitle just by putting another text box and I could just say sales report 2018 to 2021. I could have that as the subheading. I could reduce the size. I could make it italics. First select all, make it italics. I could increase the font to like 12. And of course, I could just carry it. So click, carry, and then bring it there. So you've gotten this report. To publish it, go back to home. And then when you're on home, just click on publish. Now, when you click on publish, it's going to ask you to save this Power BI desktop. If the organization you work with has several workspaces, you'll see it all there. And then you can choose where you are going to save your work. I'm going to save it in my workspace because that's what I have. I'll click on my workspace and say select. And immediately, Power BI is publishing our reports. Click on this link. When you click on it, it brings you, bam, into Power BI service. If you get to this stage, all you need to do, I can right click here, say drill through, and it's going to work. It's taking me there. So I'm seeing all of that. I can decide I just want to see this, right click, smartphone details, bam. I'm seeing all my smartphone details, quantity sold, and all of that. I can use this to go back there. I can go to region and see only what's happening in the north, only what's happening in the east, only what's happening in the south. If I press control, I can click more than one region. But in a nutshell, we have covered these 5 areas: design, data, relationships, reports, and now publishing. That's it. Thank you once again, and I'll see you some other time. Thank you.